Gary Gensler, well, actually, not Gary Gensler. Jerome Powell spills the beans today. So, welcome to Debate Crypto. Question everything, trust nothing. Even the intro sometimes is suspicious. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome back for another episode of Around the Charts here. We got some amazing guests. Get excited. Start smashing those likes. First up, we got Frankie Candles in the house with the Candle Mafia. What's going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Thank you so much for having me on. Pumped to be here.
I'm excited to have you on, man. It's been a while. You guys always bring some great information. Up next, we got Magic Internet Money. What's going on?
Another day in paradise in Kansas. You know that.
That's right. That's right. And finally, we got Gareth Soloway. What's going on, man? How you been?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here.
Dude, I'm excited to have all of you guys on. Like you guys know, this is my favorite show of the week. Lots have been happening with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I mean, just yesterday we saw that big dip, right? There was a whole rumor that the government was selling Bitcoin, and we've kind of bounced back since then. There's been a lot of other news coming out with GDP being a lot lower than expected. And when I hinted at Jerome Powell spilling the beans earlier today, I'll be revealing what that is if you guys don't know what that is just yet. But before we get started, how are you guys feeling about the markets? Just open talk conversation. Let's start off with you, Frankie. How are you feeling? You feeling bullish? You feeling bearish? Or
so I'm feeling a bit neutral today. I was saying in my morning market update earlier today that I'm kind of neutral. If I had to lean somewhere, I would lean a little bit bullish in the short term. But we got a weekly red dot, so I'm being cautious. I'm being cautious right now.
Okay, sounds good. Magic, how about you? How are you feeling? Bearish, bullish?
You know, I don't really have those feelings.
No. You just go from box to box.
I'm really looking for like the previous week open. You know, take the developing week high, get a little push there, and see if it's a shortable event. If not, we don't trade it.
All right, Gareth, how about you? How are you feeling, man?
So I think for the crypto markets, it's kind of a neutral, slight negative. I'm a little surprised with how fast we snapped back from yesterday. Granted, the rumor, obviously, of the government, that was just a rumor, which panicked people. But I am curious here. This level at 30,500 on crypto to me is a huge level. We've pulled back already. As we reattack it, I get a little bit more concerned that weakens the level. So we'll have to see if we get back to that 30,500 level. When it comes to the equity markets, I am like super bearish. All right, and not so much very short term. Like who knows what the Amazon earnings are going to be today? You know, who knows what Apple's going to report next week? But like the signals that I'm seeing in the market are just unbelievably bearish, you know, from the macro side all the way through even some of these charts. So I'm seeing a lot of hopium out there in the markets, kind of a complacency almost. In fact, I don't know. Let me see if I can show you guys this chart. It's just kind of it's one of those things that for me, bear with me as I show it. You know, take a look at this. So I think we've all seen this before, right? This is the psychology of the market chart. And what I want to draw your attention to on this is, let me zoom in. See this run up here, this pullback, and then this sideways chop, right? And now if we flip over to, let me see if I can go to let me flip over to my stock charts here. Bear with me. Okay. Now if we go to the S&P 500, what you can see on this chart, if I zoom out, it's almost a perfect replica. Look at that up move. All right, so here's that up move from COVID, the down move, and then look at that. And so if you go back, if we looked at that chart again, what we were in was the period after euphoria where you pulled back, where you're getting into complacency. And that's the part of complacency to me that people are saying, oh, we're going to go right back and start making new all-time highs. Everything's going to be fine. And they're ignoring a lot of the other factors that are going on. And so if this plays out like that chart that I just showed you before, which was the psychology of the market, the next wave down is going to be a massive sell. And I could see that happening basically because we're in a point here where, you know, you're getting to a point where the Fed's now already said we're going into a recession. Granted, they called it mild. I would just generally say that, remember, the Fed also said we were going to have transitory inflation. So
Yeah.
they're not the best. If they say something, chances are it's about 10 times worse. And so just to be aware of this, I mean, this complacency period has a lot of people just saying, it's all clear signs. The Fed's eventually going to halt and we'll be fine. I think they're missing the point of that. We're going to see the economy get weaker and weaker, and the Fed isn't going to be able to drop rates like they did prior because inflation's still high.
I'm worried. That's all I'm going to say. I definitely have been worried. Keeper and I have been talking about it in the background about the traditional markets, just the economy overall. A lot of geopolitical tensions happening over there in the Asian persuasion hemisphere, and it's not looking good. And when things get tight, they always resort to the freedom machine, and that's the only way they can keep things afloat. So I am concerned about things like that. But let's start off here into the first question. And Gareth, dude, I love that you bring in the heat. I mean, it's going to be a good one today. Let me tell you guys. Magic, let's start off with you. What are you? So we've been on here. We've been talking about this for many weeks, right? This is like the 40th week that we do these TA Thursdays with a panel on here. We've been talking about May and June for a long time. Next week, we're starting May. What are the targets, right? With everything that's happening, before we even take into account everything that's happening, and we dive deeper into that, what are you expecting target-wise between May to June? I know Bill Noble, he couldn't make the show today, but his kind of targets, if I can paraphrase correctly, is he expects a rally somewhere towards the end of May. I forget what the target is, and then a possible drop early into June, which is also kind of the same time about I think the next rate hike, if I'm not mistaken. But what are you seeing? What are your targets for this next month? They always say May, sell and walk away. How are you feeling about it?
I don't buy too much into that stuff. There's some truth to it when there's truth to it, so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point when it's convenient for people. For me, this was a big pivot on the 17th of April. Mainly because it lined up really nicely with historical dates, and also we had some fib time coming in there. So I'm looking at things as essentially range bound for now. I have no bias, nor am I going to pretend to know what's going on.
I don't know if you're trying to share your screen, but
no, I wasn't, but I will. I'll show you guys my timeline. I've got dates mapped out for it. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my camera. It seems to give me issues here the last few times I've tried to do this. So at least on this show. And so this was the pivot that I was looking for in terms of time. And I'll continue looking out towards probably in July for the next pivot. If you wanted to add another date on here, you certainly could. It's not necessary in my opinion. It's more of just a pit stop where you'd say May 19th, right, is where I would start looking towards. Will that be a drop or a pump? I don't know, man. I don't have a crystal ball. It really depends on how we get there and what we're doing in that moment. So for me, I'm still long from 16.6. This certainly isn't an area that I'm looking to put on long-term long positions. I am taking longs. I took a long from 27.3, shared it on my Twitter, and I'm out of that position already. If we break through the yearly pivot at 26.724, my bias would be the sell in May, walk away is going to be a very real event, and you could be looking down as low as 20K. Because I think if you break below 26,724, that you're going to see 24,700 on the mean reversion. I just don't know that it stops there. I think that you get the bounce and then we probably start making our way down into the lower 20s in that event. However, if you start reclaiming some of these zones, specifically, this one here, I've pointed this one out before on the show, really big area here between your quarter one and your old point of control coming in from this consolidation and then this macro low right here. If you get back above this, then yeah, that July pivot where I'm looking for upside still based on prior year's volatility expansion, yeah, you're looking for probably closer to 38 to 40, 45K at that point. There's no way to truly know what's going to happen. None of us do. We can all speculate and put the pieces together as they come. But the most important thing is going to be, okay, I have a plan for both scenarios. I understand the macro, and I'm going to make sure that I position myself accordingly, given whatever opportunity presents itself. If you've been sitting out this entire move up, and you're just now joining crypto, welcome to the show. It's a pretty risk-on environment. I would just say trade the range until it's not a range, and you may not know what that means, but just trade down here when you can and trade up here when you can. Use the best invalidation possible. So in terms of targets, yeah, I'd be looking out towards like May 19th is my next pivot for time, and we'll see what we get in that era. If it's a sell the event type of thing, I'm not going to sit that out. If it's a pump, well, good. We're already exposed long from lower. So,
dude, awesome. I mean, that 31, 32 range is, I guess, it's still going to continue being a problem. But like always, you know, it's one of these things where Bitcoin right now is, it's just very kind of sideways, and there's so many different things happening, like we mentioned earlier in the show, and we're going to continue diving into here, that, you know, things are crawling slowly, but at the same time, it's not bad, because we don't want massive explosion of price already. The faster we go up, the faster we come down. It's good building support levels at these 20,000, high 20s, low 30s, and eventually, you know, continue to building a foundation moving up. So guys, I just want to quickly remind you, we got about 140 people in here. We got 30 likes. Let's get to 100 likes, guys. Let's just smash those likes. But my next question is for you, Frankie Candles. My question for you is, right, the rumor of the government, you know, possibly selling Bitcoin yesterday made things drop, right? They know how to play with the emotions of the markets very quickly. How, you know, and it dropped significantly, and then when everybody found out that it wasn't real, then, you know, it also bounced back. They were talking about the government and Mount Gox at the same time, you know, releasing some Bitcoin, and that's always been floating around, right?
Yeah.
The Mount Gox coins has been around forever. Any minute now they're going to release it and Bitcoin's going to crash, right? So what do you think about Bitcoin continuous movement upward the rest of this year? Do you think Bitcoin can keep moving up? And if you do, what kind of targets are you also looking at for like later part in this year?
Yeah, for sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. And there you go. Can you guys see that?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So for me, higher targets for Bitcoin. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of comparing this little rally from the bottom that we had. Everyone's kind of comparing it to this 2019 little fake out bull rally that we had, or bear market rally, whatever you want to call this. And I think there is validity to that. You know, there's somewhat of from a time perspective, it kind of lines up. And then obviously that was a move from the actual bottom. So if 15.5 was the actual bottom, it would make a lot of sense that we're in a similar situation here. And kind of what I've been looking at, which is pretty interesting. If you go ahead and pull I think I actually might have shown this on this show before, but if you pull a fib from your 2017 all-time high all the way to the bottom of the bear market, let me just zoom in a little bit so I can get that a little more accurately there. So if you go ahead and pull that fib, you could see that we did get a run up into that kind of macro golden pocket, again, from the all-time high to the low. And we got that big run up to that golden pocket, which was between about, 13.3 or, about 13 and 14K, where we eventually got that rejection before the March 2020 dump. And, I think a lot of people, I know there are some people calling for that 48 to 50K level. And I've talked about that as well. And, kind of where I got that level from was pulling that same kind of fib from the top all the way to the all-time low. And then you get that macro golden pocket around 48 to 50K. And I think when you start calling for these prices, people really start to lose their minds. They're like, oh my God, it's a moon boy. Don't listen to the moon boy. And, don't get me wrong. I love how, Magic Internet Money just said this. There's no way for anybody to really know what's going to happen. And I don't pretend to know, exactly what's going to happen, right? So there is no, guarantees that we get up here. But something that I've kind of been pointing out to people is, back here, this run up was actually from the bottom. If you measure it roughly, this was about a 350% move up into that golden pocket, right? And it actually brought us within, I think, 30% of our actual all-time high. About 30% of that all-time high, right? And this was a rally in the bear market. And then obviously we got that March 2020 dump that brought us, not quite to the bottom, but basically brought us all the way back down to these lows, giving everybody a second chance to get in on the bull market, right? So kind of, everybody calling, oh, it's moon boy predictions. But something to realize here is if we did get that run up all the way from the bottom into this local golden pocket, it's only a 227% pump from the bottom. And I think it would bring us a similar percentage. About 30% from the all-time high, right? So, obviously, you're dealing with diminished returns, logarithmic regression. As the market matures, we would expect these moves up and down to be a little bit less explosive as the market matures. So it kind of would make sense to me. It wouldn't be that unexplainable or, that unthinkable to see a move into that macro golden pocket, being that it kind of does account, this being a 350% pump and this only being a 222% pump, or, give or take a few percent there. I do think, on the very, very high end of this bullish move, that is kind of the highest I would be calling for if this move is going to continue. But again, I'm not necessarily calling for that to happen. But if I'm, like you asked, if I'm looking for higher targets, for the most bullish case, I would look between 48 and 50K. And then obviously, coming to retest kind of these lows down here between about 33 and, even 35K would be some other targets I'd be looking at for sure.
Yeah, and that's all pre-halvening, correct?
Yeah.
Because normally we see halvening events, and then after the halvening event, we see the big movement upward to the higher prices. But with everything that's happening this year, I think this is very possible, right? And like I said, I'm not a TA trader. I don't know anything about technicals. I'm just seeing what's happening around the world, right? The whole narrative of de-dollarization and a bunch of other stuff. So there's a bunch of other stuff going on that I definitely believe Bitcoin moving up could definitely be a very big possibility. And this leads me to the question for Gareth, which is it's a big question, Gareth, and I'm handing it to you because I know you got what it takes for it, right? We see the BRIC nations. Definitely growing, right? There's more countries involved now. I think there's like 19 of them starting to apply. I think 6 out of those 19 are just asking questions, but the whole movement towards BRICS and what they're doing over there continues to grow. The narrative of the de-dollarization, along with the BRIC nations, continues to grow lately, along with what's happening with the incoming mild recession, as they said, and the GDP slowing down, interest rates, everything that's happening with the dollar. Mm-hmm. How do you see? So before I ask you the question, I'm going to spill the beans of what the Jerome Powell said. Apparently, he was prank called, and he thought he was talking to the president of Ukraine, and he was letting them know that there was 2 more interest rate hikes coming this year. That's the rumor. I don't know if it's true or not, right? But let's assume that it is true. Let's assume that there are 2 more interest rate hikes coming this year. How do you see that affecting Bitcoin? And that's not the correct question. Let me back up here. What are you seeing in the traditional markets that could hurt or help Bitcoin's case right now throughout this year?
Yeah, so I mean, the de-dollarization story that you mentioned is definitely something to pay attention to. I think there's a lot of kind of this fear in the internet or on the internet and social media that it's like it's going to happen tomorrow and the dollar is going to collapse. And I've had actually random people that I haven't talked for in years, like, messaging me, hey, do I need to, what should I do to get out of my dollars? And I think it's important to recognize, number one, is that yes, that's happening and it will continue to happen, but it's not like an overnight thing. Like, you're probably talking like a 10-year horizon before the dollar is finally not the main reserve currency of the world. But again, the writing is on the wall. So, I think as a shorter term trader like I am, that's not something that even comes into my purview of how I'm going to trade, right? I'm not focused on something that is going to happen over a 10-year time frame. I'm focused what's going to happen over the next 10 minutes or 10 hours. So yes, it's coming, but I don't think people need to freak out about it yet at this stage of the game. When you're looking at like what's going on with Jerome Powell, how will the traditional markets handle it? So I think for me, the biggest thing is just kind of keeping a level head, right? There's so much emotion in the markets, which pushes, you have the greed on one side, the fear on the other. And the markets seem to cue off of weaker economic data. Like we saw the GDP number this morning coming in slightly less than expected, 1.1%. And the markets, along with good earnings, are rallying really sharply. S&P's up 2%, NASDAQ's up more than 2%. And I think, honestly, the market is getting carried away with this narrative that let's get the Fed to stop, and then right away they're going to start cutting rates, right? And the only way, number one, they're cutting rates is if the economy collapses, right? Because Jerome Powell said to us he doesn't want to repeat the issues that Volcker did, where he started cutting too quickly and then inflation ripped higher again. And so we know that with inflation where it is, they're not going to cut. They may stop hiking, but the question is if we get into a recession, like let's look at the GDP number. If that next quarter is down to 0 and the quarter after is negative and we do go into a recession, how is the Fed going to get us out? And my case study here would say the Fed is not going to come to the rescue of the markets right away because they don't want to trigger that next wave of inflation. So I think for me, looking at Bitcoin and like the price, what's the risk to Bitcoin here? To me, it's to say, okay, if in the second half of the year we do enter a recession, let's say stock prices reprice based on lower earnings due to the recession. Let's say we get a 25% down move on in the S&P. How is Bitcoin holding up as a still risk asset in a decline in the S&P like that? And that's kind of my case study here. I don't necessarily think there's going to be anything major that's going to hurt Bitcoin at this point. I think eventually we get regulation. I think that's going to be fine for Bitcoin. Aside from that, it's more of the risk factors for Bitcoin.
Dude, that was a great question. So then that leads me to, as a follow-up, right? With Bitcoin becoming, or the interest rate hikes coming in or not, do you think more people are going to start fleeing to Bitcoin later this year as this continues to happen? I know Bill Noble has some certain thoughts about what could be possibly happening here later this year, but what do you think about that with the interest rates continuously going up and obviously, like you said, the Fed not coming to save you, right? And we just had another bank drop off yesterday, right? Yesterday or the day before, First Republic Bank. How is that going to fare for Bitcoin? Will people continue to flee over there?
I mean, I think any issues within the banking system is like the case study for why you need Bitcoin. So again, that's definitely like when the banking crisis started a month and a half, 2 months ago. For me, I was like, that's like, wow, this is exactly why we do need Bitcoin. So that was a positive. I think that, again, there's just going to be a consistent grind towards crypto. I'm not looking at like anything as of now with the economy that's going to all of a sudden, trigger a massive move of people in. The only difference could be is if we got regulatory reform and we actually knew the rules, then I do think big money would finally start to rotate in. And that would be a huge thing for Bitcoin, right? If you can get big money to feel comfortable enough to get in the space. And I think this goes back to, Coinbase having to threaten to leave the country, right? When you have Coinbase threatening to leave because they keep on asking for what the rules are and they're not getting any rules, it's like, what the heck's going on here? And my suspicion is the Fed or the SEC doesn't want to release rules because the CBDC needs to be released first, and they basically want to make sure that the CBDC is the first thing that's done. So that's the primary avenue versus getting big money into a lot of these Bitcoin and crypto trades. So that's just my personal thought on it. But yeah, it's a wild market. I mean, there's so much going on in the inner workings of the stuff right now.
Can't hear you, Crusader.
I think you're muted.
I was on mute. My bad. So I was saying that I completely agree with what you're saying. With everything that's set up right now that's happening, if they open up a spot ETF for Bitcoin and they have the clear regulations, right? Institutions are waiting. We have all these big companies, Fidelity, BlackRock, MicroStrategy, and so forth, right? All they're just waiting, waiting to prime before they jump onto Bitcoin even more. And if they do that with the way the dollar is set up right now and the way, economically things are set up and, geopolitically, I think a lot of people would flee there faster than before. And they don't want that, like you said, right? They want the CBDC. They want to keep people in the system. They don't want people fleeing the system. And they're going to try to come up with every type of incentive to keep them in there. And they just can't release that regulation just yet. So now we've entered the portion of the show where we're going to be open-ended questions here for everyone. So there's a chart I want to show you guys. I saw this on Twitter. I'm going to be sharing here. I don't know this guy. I don't know anything about him. I just saw the tweet, but I see a lot of these type of tweets, and I want to get your guys' opinions on these TA tweets out here. So let me share out my screen. So as you guys can see here, this is the tweet, right? Talks about the Bitcoin bull run, and then he has a structure set up here saying that we're technically somewhere around this area, right? We're at this 30,000 area right here. And with these cycles, which I don't even understand how these circles work, right? We're possibly approaching somewhere at $350,000 Bitcoin. When you guys see this stuff, how valid is this? How can you quickly say, well, this has some validity to it, or hey, this just makes absolute no sense? Frankie, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, this is interesting. I actually have not seen this chart. But for me, with this kind of stuff, obviously looking at the 4-year cycle and trying to compare from one cycle to another can be very insightful in certain ways. I think it's just important to realize that, nothing is, I know the 4-year cycle has kind of repeated, pretty closely time-wise, for up until now. And I know it's kind of an argued thing. Is the 4-year cycle real, or, does it just kind of follow the stock market making all-time highs? I know there's some people out there that are convinced that the 4-year cycle doesn't really have much to do with the halving, but more to do with the correlation to the stock market. But for stuff like this, I'll be honest, I love looking at stuff like this because, again, if you could kind of take an agnostic approach and understand that, by comparing the history to now, you're not going to get 100% accurate answers. But I mean, that's basically what TA is, right? It's, it's analyzing past trends and kind of extrapolating that data to make, as best of a future prediction as you can. So I've never actually seen that chart specifically. But, if we are going to see the 4-year cycle kind of repeat itself and it is going to hold true, I don't think that would really be that far off. I don't know the $350,000 prediction. That for me personally, again, like you were saying, Miguel, with all the banks going down and, it just seems like it's just another one domino after another. With all this stuff happening, maybe we do see something crazy happen, but that would be a little bit high for my prediction for the next bull market. However, doesn't mean it's impossible or anything like that. Especially, Bitcoin pumped the other day. First Republic went down, and we see a spike in Bitcoin. And I've been saying this a lot in the office. For anyone watching that doesn't know, I work with BitBoy Crypto, so obviously we're surrounded by tons of crypto people. And we were talking about, you don't want to hold dollars. You can't hold physical cash. It's just going to melt. Obviously, everybody knows that. You can't hold it in your actual bank account because the banks are going down. And we were just talking about, where are you supposed to put your money? And we all kind of looked around at each other like, is it time? Is it time for crypto to shine? And it really does just seem that every day that goes by, it's just like, it just seems like less and less of the risky move and more of the safe move. And you see that reaction too. Every time we get something with the banks that happens, you see a little bit of a pump in Bitcoin, which, is, so exciting to see as someone who's been in crypto since, 2016, 2017 bull run. Super exciting to see. So these are always fun to look at, just as long as we, you're looking at it, understanding that, you're not going to get exact predictions by comparing the past to the present.
Perfectly said, dude. Perfectly said. I mean, I agree. My big thesis with everything that you were saying and with everything that's happening with the banking system is that I believe, and this is just pure speculation, is that this could be the catalyst events, or the catalyst event is coming for the super cycle for Bitcoin. Whether we hit that 350,000 or not, I don't know how far we'll go. But I think that if there was a time for a super cycle to occur, I think this would be it, right? With everything that's happening with the banking system, with the dollar, with just the way technology is going, right? Russia is getting involved with Bitcoin mining, and getting involved with Bitcoin. The BRICS nations are moving together. I think China's coming back into Bitcoin now that and there was a good there's a good point by somebody that I saw. I can't remember what podcast I saw this on. It was a few days ago, maybe a week or two ago, that talked about how China, when earlier in the cycles, right, in 2013, 2014, and so forth, the United States wasn't really anti-crypto or anti-Bitcoin, right? They just didn't care. China was very anti-Bitcoin at that point, and it always constantly coming out saying, we're banning it, right? Now, the inverse has happened. Regulation has been slipping up in the United States. The United States is looking very anti-Bitcoin and very pro-CBDC, and now China is taking the inverse step, saying, hey, we're going to start putting some money back into Bitcoin. We're going to start doing this. And it all coincides at the same time with their BRIC Nations movement. I know they have their own digital yuan. They're going to try to release a digital ruble as well. But I just think it's very, it's a good coincidence that's happening, which, go ahead.
I was just gonna throw in there that we just talked about before is what's holding up the regulation in the U.S. and the answer I threw out there was waiting for that CBDC to be launched by the Fed and get its foothold. Well, if you look at China, it's actually the same playbook, right? Because when they were launching the digital yuan, that's when they were banning Bitcoin. Now that the digital yuan has a foothold and people are doing trading in digital yuan with Argentina, I just saw that with a lot of these other countries. Now they're like, okay, their CBDC has that foothold. Now they're like, okay, we can let Bitcoin come back because it's not a threat anymore. We have the foothold. So just interesting to notice how these countries are doing this, including the US.
Dude, that's a great point. That's a great summarization of what's happening there. So is the United States following China's playbook? Somebody clip that. I don't know. Maybe, right? So Magic, how you feel about that chart, man? What do you think about those circles? And they look like crop circles from the UFOs, but I don't know.
I was gonna say that I should print it out and let my daughter color on it. To me, that's kind of a meme account. It has been for a long time. It was around back in 2020, 2021 that dude was pumping out.
Oh, so you're familiar. You're familiar with that.
I'm very familiar. I've seen that. That account's been around for a minute. He posts things like that all the time. He's a very talented artist. I'll say that. I wouldn't put his charting ability in that category, but that's only because of accuracy issues. So I'll take the stab at it. I think it's an interesting concept, and that one day, if he is right, he's going to look like a god, right? He's going to ride that thing to the moon. But until then, I'm not going to take too much of it seriously. I think that everyone should always do their own research. I know that's a terrible term in this space, but do your own due diligence, I guess, on the charts and your own thesis. Write it down. Come to your own conclusions. Don't just base it off of some dude that made a really cool chart on Twitter. But I'm sure the comment section on that thing is awesome, though. I bet there are just battles going on in there right now. People calling him all kinds of names and calling each other names. So if you got free time and you like popcorn, I'm sure that'll be entertaining as well.
Dude, 100%. I was not aware of that Twitter account at all. I just stumbled upon it today, and I was like, hey, this is a good thing to bring up. Because I do see
him, and there was another one that I thought was the same guy.
Yeah, I see a lot of similar things like this around Twitter every once in a while, these random charts that, predict these crazy movements. And I just I don't know how valid these things are. So I just thought I'd bring it up. So Garrett, I want to hit you with something a little bit more different. You're our traditional market guy, right? And a lot of things have been happening. So we were talking about the GDP slowing down, right? We talked about how, they're talking about a mild recession. How bad, or what should people be expecting to come up later this year with the traditional markets? I had an image here I want to pull up and show you guys about just central banks have been pushing to buy a ton of gold. I believe the number is 1,136 tons in 2022, and that was mainly like Russia, China, India, Turkey. But with everything that's happening in the traditional markets, what should people expect to see, right? Because a lot of people might be here right now are in crypto, but they also have 401ks. They might have some positions in stock market, and we're talking about, like Frankie was saying, right? Is this the time to what is riskier, putting your money into these things, holding cash, or starting to put it into crypto? What should people expect?
I mean, to me, I'm looking at the markets as a consolidation period right now. So I think this is where everyone's kind of not 100% sure. They're kind of believing that things are going to be okay, that the Fed will somehow pull a rabbit out of a hat. And I think more than anything, people are at a point where they're saying, hey, listen, the Fed has bailed us out every time now for the last 13, 14 years since 2009 with quantitative easing, with low interest rates. If we get into trouble, they'll come bail us out again, right? And I think that's going to be the kind of the turning point for this stock market itself, the traditional markets later this year, when we do see that economic data, which, as you mentioned, it's starting to weaken. Last jobs report, it was just a little less than what we expected, that the market expected. And I think you're starting to see the cracks emerge here. So for me, it's not really quite yet. It's more probably second half of the year where we really start to see us slipping into that early part of a recession. And then the question becomes is, when does the market say, okay, Federal Reserve, we're in a recession. Where are you? Why aren't you saving us? And if the Fed turns around and says, hey, sorry, we're not saving you, that's where that kind of fear and panic, right? Is think about a child that's so used to their parents just, they fall over their parents, like grab them real quick and save them. That's kind of the stock market. That's what investors are used to right now. And if you're out on your own and you fall and you skin your knee, that's going to be the big test for the investment world here. So So that's kind of how I'm playing it at this stage. I'm slowly getting a little bit more short as we get towards the middle point of the year. I'm still trading around the positions. I'm in them out. Heck, yeah. Was it yesterday? I was short crypto at 30,000. I was short Bitcoin, and then I went long on that dip. I mean, it's just been great trading environment. But overall, for the traditional markets, I'm slowly increasing my shorts over these last few days.
Do those shorts also include with what's happening with the oil?
I'm not short oil right now. The chart to me is a little tougher to read. I've been dabbling with natural gas on the long side just because it's been beaten up so much, but not so much on the oil front right now, at least.
Okay, okay, perfect. So now comes the other round of questions. Is going to be, we've spoken about all these things. We talked about regulation, Bitcoin. Do you guys believe that at some point this year we will see a Bitcoin ETF? And if we do, what would be your sentiment towards the targets that Bitcoin could reach if that ETF is launched? Frankie, why don't we start with you?
So yeah, I would say, really hard to predict if we'll get one. If we do get one, I would, again, really hard to predict. I would, I would get probably pretty bullish at that point. It's hard to say, like you were just saying, Miguel. I would agree. If there is a time for something really crazy, to see something crazy like a super cycle, or kind of what we talk. I was talking to TJ about this on one of our other shows. He's talking about how he thinks we could potentially see the regulatory bull run, or just like a super cycle where we see things like the cycles break, Bitcoin goes crazy because of external factors such as the banks going down, and I do think just kind of in that same thought process, if there is a time for this to become a thing, for Bitcoin ETF to be released, I feel like this would be a better time than ever. And if we get a Bitcoin ETF and the banks and everything continue to go down, and we see things continue to go the way it's going, I think that really could really dump gasoline on the fire. As far as where I think things will go, hey, maybe that Twitter account's right. Maybe 350K. But again, like Magic Internet Money was saying, it's impossible to really know. But I will say this: if we did get that on top of all this stuff going on in the macro with the traditional finance system, I think it could wind up being that super cycle, that regulatory bull run, the crypto bull run, as some people would say.
Dude, I love it. Magic, I'm going to hit you with a little bit of a different question here. We've seen a lot of regulation stuff happening, right? Oh, I'm getting feedback. Is somebody's mic open?
What about?
Yeah, yeah. There you go. For whatever reason, I was getting feedback from your mic.
That's weird.
Yeah,
You still getting that?
Yep.
Here, go ahead.
All right, good job. Awesome. So, so where was I? My question: regulations, right? We've seen Gary Gensler be very, back and forth about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies. We've seen Coinbase like, hey, we need regulation or we're out of here. We see Bybit saying, hey, you need a KYC or get out of here by May 8th. What do you see, or what do you think would be positive for Bitcoin in regulation wise, besides the ETF, right? Do you think that the U.S. overall is screwed at this point if they don't get the ball together with proper regulation, and Coinbase maybe potentially leaving the U.S.? Is it time for the average crypto person to leave the U.S. if they want to stay involved in the space?
No. You just like when China banned it back in 2019, people still bought and sold Bitcoin. Nothing is going to change. If they get regulation, that would be great. I do think that, Gareth has a good point with the CBDC. They are kind of just trying to get that underway because they have really no way to actually regulate this right now because they don't have the tools to do it. And the CBDC to them, I think, fixes that. Do I think that's the only reason they're doing a CBDC? No, but that is a big benefit to it. So for me, if they get regulation, I honestly think it's business as usual. The ETF is going to be the big pump on it. But for everyday people like myself and other people that are watching this show, probably, it really isn't going to matter too much. We just need to know the rules that we're playing by. I think I saw an article that said that, only the US was the highest reporting nation for taxes on crypto, but only like 1 to 3% of people that held crypto worldwide actually pay taxes on it. So nothing is stopping people from getting involved in the magic internet money business. We'll just use that term. So I don't think it changes whether there's regulation or not. People that want to be in Bitcoin are going to be in Bitcoin. They will find a way to buy this. And there are avenues to still buy Bitcoin anonymously and things like that. I'm sure the government's aware of that and they're trying to shut it down. But to me, it doesn't really, it doesn't change anything. I'm not leaving the country over it. Let me put it that way. It's one of those things where I'm going to have it on a ledger. They can come try to get it if they want, but I don't like their chances, especially trying to enforce that across the nation. It's not good.
For sure. I agree, right? When it comes to the, I need you to mute again. So yeah, my bad, dude. But what was it? Threw me off. I forgot. Oh, regulation, right? The coming for you. I don't think they're going to come out to the individual person, but a lot of these people are trying to build companies, whether it's an NFT project with like some level of utility, whether it's some type of crypto business in general. I don't know how far along, the regulations are going to be along with crypto YouTube versus just, creating forms in the crypto space. A lot of people are leaving to like Dubai, right? And these other countries that are a lot more receiving when it comes to tax purposes, very incentivizing tax wise. At the same time, just, because the US, you can't really launch anything because then out of nowhere, this guy, Gary Gensler, just comes after you like, you're selling unregistered securities. Bam, you're getting sued, right? And they're hitting different exchanges with different nonsense. So I feel that it's very unfortunate that the United States is not leading the charge here with cryptocurrencies. But there's a lot behind it. I believe that it all ties into the 270-year cycle of like nations coming to an end, currencies dying. I think that agenda, if you believe in the Illuminati or whatever, probably have a hand in that. But taking a quick left turn off that topic for you, Gareth, I want to show up my screen here one more time. We're talking about risk and what's happening with Bitcoin. This is a pretty way to sum it up, right? US dollar, your money divided by infinite, right? This is the problem with saving, right? And then with Bitcoin, right? It's your money divided by 21 million. There's only going to be 21 million. So it only goes up in value. That's a pretty quick summarization. I wanted to show that to the chat. If you guys haven't smashed those likes, guys. So Gareth, what with Bitcoin moving, we've seen also the rise of meme coins, right? These last 2 weeks, we had Pepe, we have Per, we had I think Gensler was a token. I think somebody was calling for a Tucker token to come out. I mean, all kinds of meme tokens are firing off. Is that a signal for a local top, in your opinion?
That's one of the concerns I have, right? Is that type of stuff is what happens at tops, not at bottoms, right? So if I'm correct and this 30,500 level does end up holding and we come back down, that's the signal we'll look back on and say that did happen, right? And again, I mean, this is like, I mean, to me, I look at this stuff and it's just like classic pump and dump. You have people coming out with these coins, fancy name, the Gensler, Pepe, whatever it is. You get enough people to pump it, it'll rip, and then everyone jumps on board and they make a pretty penny while dumping and selling into it. It's been done in the stock world for ages, pump and dump. So I just want people to be careful. Again, it is a signal of a top, but even regardless of that, just be careful chasing. I mean, it's really sexy to think, oh, I could jump on this, even though it's up 400%, maybe it'll go up 1,000% and I can make some money. But more people than not will lose money doing that. And usually it's a really bad loss. It's not a small loss. So just be careful with that stuff.
I think you're muted again.
I muted myself when I was thinking I was on. Good God. I was saying, John Connor, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. So guys, great show today. I appreciate every single one of you guys coming on here. I am also worried about the top, a local top here with all these meme coin explosion out of nowhere. It does worry me. It does concern me. People make lots of money, and then at the same time, they don't realize that even though you got in really early and you made millions of dollars on Pepe or whatever, you probably can't take that out because there's not enough liquidity to actually sell all that. And then you're just seeing a lot of people, manipulating their screens and making them show that they just got 400, 500 ETH on a Pepe trade. And it's not really that true, guys. It's just content creation for hype and engagement farming.
Right.
So be very careful out there with all these meme coins. I never participate. I would love to. I'd be like, damn, I wish I could make $1 million off $20. But I just know it's not that realistic. And somehow I always miss it. I don't know. Nobody ever sends me a memo and says, hey, buy Pepe before it blows up, right? I always get it when it's 400% already up, and then you buy a top, right? And that's how it ends up being. So that's why you got to be very careful. Like I said, I appreciate every single one of you guys coming on the show here today. You guys take an hour of your day to come on here and show great information for everybody. So guys, if you're not following these guys, their description is down in their video description is down in the description of this channel. Go check them out. Go follow Frankie Candles. Go follow Magic Internet Money. Go follow Gareth Soloway. Tons of great information every single day on their personal YouTubes and Twitter accounts. So go make sure you follow them. Like I said, I appreciate every single one of you coming on here.
Is it Frankie's birthday?
It is.
Happy
he's
birthday,
been doxxed.
buddy.
He's been doxxed.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Frankie Candles.
Thank you very much.
I know Magic had a birthday a few days ago, so happy late birthday to him too.
Birthday.
Guys, we're all getting old, but we're still young. I feel it. I feel it. So just want to let everybody know to question everything, trust nothing, and until next time, hodl like it's hot. See you guys.